All right, all right, all right. I think I'm coming through here. I have no clue. I don't think anyone's tuning into the live stream yet. Just if you're watching this um, after the live stream, I just turned it on, just sent out some messages. I'll be completely honest with you. This is my first time ever going live on anything. Could have done this on TikTok. Maybe it would have been more effective. But you know what I said? Thinking to myself, well, you haven't done a podcast in a while. And I have a lot of explanation as to why I haven't done them. I've wanted to incorporate the webcam as I'm using on my Mac here into the live streams or into the podcast episodes. The best way to do that, I thought, was through a live stream. And with that, I wanted to record this in a way that it could be more live, almost like a conversation, but not necessarily a conversation because I have about 8 people who watch my podcast on a regular basis, and I am super appreciative of those of you who tune into these bi-weekly or every week for that matter when I send you the links. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. Means a lot to me for that. But since I only have so few people tuning in, if I were to get everyone on one call, it would probably get jumbled all together. Voices would start crashing over each other. I'm not smart enough to set up a Zoom account and get these people on a Zoom, much less record the Zoom lecture and all the things that go with that. So this is my best idea that I have here. But with that, since this is built to be an interactive podcast episode where I really want to interact with you guys who are tuning in. If you have something you want me to address, maybe you want to rebuttal a comment that I said, maybe you don't like something I said, please feel free to put it down in the comments. You guys are more than welcome to do that. And actually, I would welcome that in the comments because I really do. Again, I want this to be an interactive discussion. So with that, let's get into the topics today. Main topics I'm going to talk about the ACC, mainly the two notable teams with Clemson and Notre Dame there that past week. I may just perhaps will delve into a little bit of Florida State. I don't want to dive into Florida State because I feel like I could be talking an hour about Florida State. I might do it though. Just if I get rolling here, perhaps I might do it. And then we're going to talk about the SEC, move a little bit farther south. We'll talk about Alabama and Florida. Mainly, those are the two best teams in the SEC, obviously. Touch on Texas A&M just a touch. No pun intended there. But touch in on Texas A&M, check in on the Aggies, update you guys on where I see them in the college football playoff race as it stands today. And obviously after this weekend of games. Not going to talk about the Big 12. They're irrelevant. Pac-12 is a joke. Pac-12, your non-conference scheduling rules are just absolutely horrible. You guys need to either include BYU in the conference, which I'm not going to be mad if you don't include BYU because I obviously know there's some challenges that come along with that. But Washington needs to play BYU. Southern Cal needs to play BYU. Cal needs to play BYU. Stanford needs to play BYU. Arizona State needs to play BYU. BYU should be like the Notre Dame to the ACC. They should be playing multiple teams in the Pac-12. It's regionally feasible. It makes sense in a literal sense. It needs to happen. Make it happen, Pac-12. Big Ten, we'll touch on a little bit of Ohio State because as the playoff rankings right now look, with Northwestern losing to Michigan State this past weekend, that's going to be the best option for the Big Ten into the playoff. And I'm going to touch on them, as I said earlier, but just a quick snippet of what is ahead. I actually don't think Ohio State has a clear shot to the playoff this year, and they actually might need a lot of stuff to happen in front of them before they can get into the playoff. So it looks like I have one live stream viewer here. Thank you, whoever you are, for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. So with that, and before I get into any college football, I thought I would update you on a little bit of economics stuff. For those of you at Carolina, you guys know that we have basically just finished up the semester, finished up last week. That was finals week. It was a challenging finals week, I will not lie. With my class schedule, I actually didn't have too many finals, which was fantastic, as in tests. I did have quite a few final projects 4 out of my 5 classes had a variation of a final project or an actual final exam. One of my classes was very easy. It was easy pass fail class, 1 credit. Doesn't have an exam. My English class had a final, not final, but Unit 3 project, which was our last unit project. The most comprehensive project, I guess you would say. Had 5 parts to it, quite a bit of stuff going on there. So that went smoothly, relatively smoothly, I should say. The Geography of Globalization final, that was interesting. A lot of writing in that one. The class was a decent amount of writing, I will say, but we got through it. Let's see, I just got a text message here. Looks like people cannot find the live stream. Well, hold on. James, you are here. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Interacting in the comments section. This is fantastic. So that went smoothly, though. Geography of Globalization was not too bad. But I will say, economics in that exam, brutal might be an understatement, to be completely honest. That was a testy one, to say the least. For those of you who are not in Economics 101 with Dr. Staub, and trust me, I do not advise you take that challenge upon yourself. Certainly not without a considerable amount of either therapy or advice consistently throughout the semester, or perhaps a really, really extensive group chat, at which I had this semester. Don't take Dr. Staub. But that exam was 5 parts. 3 of them were multiple choice. The multiple choice sections were 45 minutes each, 20 really comprehensive questions. And then there were 2 short answer, multi-part short answer, 1 question apiece. But obviously they have multi-parts within. I'm not going to lie, the exam wasn't horrible, but the thing that I'm most frustrated with, we took this exam 5 days ago. 60% of the exam, if you're just doing it by section, is online. They're instantaneous results. There's nothing you have to grade, really. Multiple choice or write-in, but again, when you're dealing with write-in numbers, it practically pops up correct or incorrect. I know there can be some difficulty if you put spaces in between and all that type of stuff, but still, that shouldn't happen. You shouldn't have to look over that type of stuff. So I'm kind of frustrated, to be honest with you, that we don't have our grades back, especially since 60% of the grade was basically online. But I will say, I understand. I know there's a lot of stuff to grade, especially during this time of year. I know it can be very stressful for teachers, TAs especially, in that. So I'm trying to have patience. It wasn't an easy test, but we'll keep moving forward here. Hold on. All right, got a couple more responses here. This is fantastic. Bringing people in. Unbelievable. Never thought I would have this many people want to tune in, but I'll be looking for you guys to come in, and that'll be fantastic. So this is fantastic. People are interacting. It's amazing. So with that, I'm gonna have to turn off the chat here. With that, let's dive into the ACC. Obviously, with Clemson and Notre Dame being the main ones. The first thing I wanted to say was Clemson on Saturday came out on fire, and I expected that to some extent. I was actually nervous for this game just slightly because I wasn't sure how the Tigers were going to respond after what felt like for a forever long layoff. The loss to Notre Dame was obviously very challenging. The week before that with Boston College was very challenging as well, and understandably so. You lose Lawrence. You play a team with Boston College who's really not that bad of a team. I mean, Boston College is a solid team there. Not fantastic by any stretch of the means, but a good team. An average ACC team. Maybe a little bit above average, I would say. Phil Jurkovec, solid quarterback. Receivers made some solid plays. Clemson goes down by double digits going into halftime. Don't have Lawrence. Figures out a way, I should say, to rally, win the game in the second half. Shuts them down on defense, holds Boston College to 0 points in the second half, and now we're rolling here. The Notre Dame loss was a little bit different. That one hurt on a multiple levels because you take the team to double overtime in a game that was very, very tough, really physical. I didn't feel like Clemson played their best in that game at all, especially situationally down the stretch there. I just didn't feel like we did. And okay, good. I'm glad we have some camaraderie going on in the comments here. This is fantastic as well. Very, very good. But I didn't feel like Clemson played very, very well in that game at all. And certainly with a depleted roster, most notably Lawrence, but a considerable amount of players injured on. There we go, Trip. Thank you very much. A considerable amount of players injured on defense really create a conducive environment to a Notre Dame victory, and that's understandable. So then you go into Florida State, and this is where I might have a little bit of a tangent off to the absolute and complete joke, hysteria, and any other word that is a synonym of those two to describe the current state of the Seminoles. For those of you who don't know, okay, thank you very much, Trip. I appreciate that. I like the webcam as well. It's a little bit weird looking at myself continuously since I don't have a slideshow of any sort. But it's better than talking to a black screen, I should say. I guess this is how our teachers felt in the spring semester of high school. But with Florida State, okay, this is not official. This is going to be more of a conspiracy theory. You're going to get into conspiracy theory part of the podcast. But I have relatively decent reasoning to assume that Florida State's trying to get out of the rest of the season, not play another game, realize this season is an abject failure in every way, shape, or form of the word possible and known, imaginable, and all that and two. They dodged Clemson. I don't care what you want to say about the positive test. I don't care what you want to say about Clemson traveling with that player. You either follow the protocol or you don't follow the protocol. You agree to the protocol or you don't agree to the protocol. You either believe in what the conference says is right or you don't believe in what the conference says is right. And the basic fact of the matter is the ACC said it was perfectly fine to play that game. Clemson followed every one of the testing protocols necessary, and Florida State forfeited the game and backed out of it. And it's really shameful on their part for multiple reasons. The first one is there's a huge economic loss taken by traveling down to Tallahassee and not being able to play a game. For those of you who don't know, the estimated travel expense cost came out to around $300,000. I want you guys to listen to that again. $300,000. This is not easy to get down to Tallahassee. I mean, you're talking about hotel rooms, meals, meeting spaces. Because Clemson, when they came down there to Tallahassee, rented a massive tent, like an event tent, from a company to have an outdoor meeting space with tables 6 feet apart and everything. Clemson followed every protocol imaginable, and even did it to an enhanced degree to ensure additional security and safety with the players. So that's one part. The second part is, let's say your team is, Trey, I see you checking in. Thank you very much. Let's say your team is a team like Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma. If you want to put Notre Dame in there, you can. But a consistent playoff team. Those are the main three: Clemson, Alabama, Oklahoma. You could put Ohio State in there, but they haven't made the playoff practically every year like Oklahoma has. So with that, if you make the playoffs every year, you play your conference championship every year. And in a normal year, your games don't get canceled like they shouldn't. Now, granted, I know a hurricane season can affect the Southeast and tornadoes and all that. Bad weather, inclement weather, bad conditions. I understand all that. But let's say everything goes normal. Normal year, no COVID, conference championship games you play, semifinal games you play, and you're good enough to make the national championship every single year. You have 4 years of eligibility given by the NCAA. That means you play 60 total games in your college career. And it's sad to have an administration, not only on Clemson's side, but also for the Florida State players. It's sad to have an administration who is so conceited about their reputation as being the ACC's leader, although Clemson does have more ACC football champions than any other team in the conference. They're so conceited about their reputation that they would undermine the interests of the players. The players want to play. That's the basic fact about this. The players want to play the games. It's the coaching staff, it's the administrative offices, and it's the overhead people that are behind closed doors that don't understand the pain and the suffering and the enormous amounts of preparation that go into these games that every single player has to put in an individual amount, both through discipline, in practice, off-season workouts by themselves, team meetings, group chats, film sessions up late at night, homework, classes. They don't see these things. And for them to undermine the preparation that goes into that, I find it really disconcerting, very sad on multiple levels. And I feel bad for not only the Clemson players, but also the Florida State players. It's a shame that we did not get to watch that, and Florida State backed out with that. So with that, you missed the Florida State game. You had a bye week after Notre Dame game. So we're talking about 3 weeks, essentially, since Clemson has played a game. And not to mention, it's been almost 5 weeks. Trey, I think it will be recorded here. I think it will be. I'm going to try to upload it and everything like that. Not sure though. So Trevor Lawrence hasn't played back in 5 weeks. I thought he would come out a little bit rusty in this game. He did. He missed a couple throws, especially that first one. It was about 5 feet behind E.J. Williams on that slant, which is understandable. But he picked it back up. The offense got rolling. Clemson absolutely blasted Pitt in the first quarter, scoring 31 points, then following up with 7, 7, and 7 the remaining 3 quarters, which was relatively solid. It was a good win for the Tigers. There was a little bit of a lull in between, especially the last 4 minutes and the beginning 4 minutes. The last 4 minutes of the first half, beginning 4 minutes of the second half, which was interesting because Dabo really harps in on winning those last four minutes of the first half and the first 4 minutes of the second half. Those are when the games can typically not necessarily be won or lost, but the momentum in the game can be shifted dramatically. I thought Clemson really lacked in those areas this game, which is fine. You're going to have those types of games, but the team played very well, certainly well enough to win the game. Yeah, they did, which is fantastic. Notre Dame played well against Carolina. Carolina did play well. I thought the Tar Heels really showed up. I was happy with the Tar Heels, but the difference between these good and great teams right now is situational awareness, situational abilities to get first downs when you have to get them, get fourth downs when you have to get them. Trip, I see that. Thank you very much. I'm intending on doing more live streams here very soon. But situational awareness, you have to win the games when you need to, and you have to make the plays when they need to. These big games come down to a very few plays. So Carolina did not do that. Carolina's on the cusp of being very, very, very good, but unfortunately the Tar Heels are not there yet. That will change here in the upcoming future, especially if Mac Brown can stay around. I fully expect the Carolina to be very good in the upcoming years here. But with Notre Dame winning and with Clemson winning, we're looking at a straight head-to-head collision course for Clemson Notre Dame in the ACC championship, which is fantastic on multiple levels. One, it raises the overall notion of the ACC championship game. It raises the overall expectations, enthusiasm, and all that goes into the game, which predominantly for the past couple of years has just been, well, Clemson's going to win the game by 50-something points and go to the playoff, and we'll go to bed. Well, this year won't be like that. And I will make a separate prediction and preview video for the Notre Dame ACC championship game if Clemson does so make it there. But this game will be quite different. So that's enough about the ACC. Let's quickly touch in on the SEC. I try to make this about 30 minutes, so let's see if we can get the rest of it done here by 30-minute mark. So, and for those of you who may not be able to see the time, we're currently at 19 and a half minutes. So with that, let's dive into the SEC. Alabama looked phenomenal, as you would expect. The Tide are certainly rolling. No pun intended there, but the Tide are rolling. And I really expect this. I expect this trend to continue. Auburn's horrible. I'm not going to make up an excuse. Auburn is absolutely awful. There's no way to get around it. Auburn is horrible. Okay, but Alabama came out and absolutely dominated, which they should have done, and they did. You have to give credit where credit's due. Alabama is by far the most deserving team in the country for the number one ranking, and that thus they are. I have no problem with that. Alabama's going to be a great team. Certainly going to be a formidable opponent in the college football playoff because they're going to the college football playoff. They may lose to Florida. I might talk about that game a little bit more as we get close to the SEC championship. But Alabama looks pretty darn good right now. It's going to be tough for any team, especially a team with Florida's defense. Although their offense is fantastic, with Florida's defense, it's going to be tough to slow down Alabama to any extent. All right, hold on here. I'm going to grab my charger and plug in my laptop. Let's see here. We'll see how this goes. This is painful. I know. All right, hold on. All right, charging. Good to go. Let's do this. So Alabama goes out and dominates like I thought they would. Played very well. Good for the Tide. Florida played relatively well against Kentucky, won by 24. Kentucky's not a great team. Trask does what he does. Unfortunately, I think you're looking at Trask and Jones for the Heisman. I think it should be Lawrence. I think you can make a very good argument for it to be Lawrence. You look at the games he played. He has unbelievable numbers. I think you can make another argument, a good argument for Justin Fields. Justin Fields hasn't played enough games. The same problem you have with Lawrence is the same problem you have with Justin Fields. There's just not enough film. There's just not enough footage. There's not enough games. There's not enough competition. Is it quite does anyone really think to themselves, if you're sitting at home right now, which is probably what you're doing, unless you're driving, that's fantastic as well, but hopefully you're not watching if you're driving. But does anyone really think that Mac Jones or Kyle Trask is better than is an overall better quarterback than Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields? You'd be hard-pressed to tell me yes. I can tell you that. Because I think Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence are by far the two best quarterbacks in college football right now. Should be number one and number two taken in the overall draft. And are absolute stars right now and will be stars at the next level. But with this being the most weird year of all time, where everything should go wrong, this is going to be another one that goes wrong. And you're probably going to have Mac Jones or Kyle Trask win the Heisman. But Florida plays well nonetheless. And they're basically on a collision course right now for Alabama in Atlanta. And that's probably what you're going to see. It'll be interesting to see how that game goes. Again, I said earlier I would talk about it more as we got closer to the game. But it will be interesting to see what ends up happening in Atlanta. So with that, that's the SEC. Big Ten, just quickly touch on Ohio State here. Ohio State has fell victim to yet another cancellation. And if you look at their cancellation so far, they've already had 2 games canceled, I want to say. I think it was 2. Which means they're going to have a max of 6 games. A max. And that's assuming a game doesn't get canceled here down the road. So the question now becomes, and I'm going to tie this into my next segment here, which will be the final segment. If you have an Ohio State team who's 6-0, okay, 6-0, and they don't get to play for the Big Ten championship because, let's say, some other team has a better record, something like that in their division. Maybe they're 5-0. Maybe have they missed 3? I remember seeing something about them not being able to make the bare minimum game requirement for the Big Ten championship. But let's just put that aside. All right, James, you have a good night, sir. Thank you for tuning in. Let's just put that aside for right now. And let's say that Ohio State goes 6-0, has a Big Ten championship win. Okay. Cincinnati goes undefeated. Texas A&M goes undefeated, but doesn't play in the SEC championship game. Alabama goes to the SEC championship game, beats Florida, and Notre Dame beats Clemson. That would knock Clemson and Florida automatically out. And so for those last couple spots, you're going to have Cincy, Oklahoma, or Ohio State. You can make a really, really good argument there that Cincinnati should get in and Texas A&M should get in. And what's even going to be harder for Ohio State if Clemson beats Notre Dame, or especially if Florida beats Auburn, or Florida beats Alabama. You're going to have a one-loss Alabama against an undefeated Ohio State for that 4 spot. It would be tough to tell me if it wouldn't be the Tide. I'll be completely honest with you. And that's how it's going to be. So I think Ohio State is definitely one of the best 4 teams in the country, but unfortunately with this crazy year and the chaos and all the just craziness around the sport, you could very well see them not be able to get in because they don't have enough games. It's just how the cookie crumbles, I guess, sometimes. So, again, this was my first live stream podcast recording here. Thank you very much for tuning in, all of you who did. Let's see who texted me here. Okay, seeing a notification. Thank you for tuning in to all of you who did. This will be recorded and uploaded on my computer. It should be, at least, on YouTube. I'm planning on doing these weekly. Instead of having the black screen, I'm planning on having the webcam. You can see me, be a little bit more interactive of an experience. I really did appreciate the conversations we got in the chat tonight. That was fantastic. Thank you again to all those who showed up in the chat to talk about that, and I look forward to doing it again next week. Stay safe, y'all, and have a good Christmas.